Hey guys, it's Christy here. I'm a VTuber now. Not really, this is maybe a one-time thing, I don't know. I just thought I would try this out because I wanted to do a lot of commentary for this video. And I never really do that for speed paints. So we're doing all sorts of new things today. This video is a speed paint of my height chart for all of my characters from my work in progress comic series called Vibrant. I thought I would real quick read you the description of Vibrant just so you can get an idea of what it's about. Avalon grew up certain of two things. She was born to be a superhero and she's never going to do anything that would cost her a friend ever again. But what happens when she finds out the city's resident supervillain is someone she actually knows? Someone she still considers a friend. Alright. And to start with, we have this part I drew back in January, which I debated whether or not to even include, because I actually didn't like it. I ended up starting over from scratch. But I thought you guys might enjoy seeing it anyway. If you didn't know, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and so I think it being January, I was probably rusty from Christmas break, and everyone, you know, at the start of the year, there's always the pressure to do better than you did last year, and I think that really got to me. I think my perfectionism manifests itself as, like, doing really smooth line art, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I personally think my line art looks better if it's a little bit sketchier. And so I have to, like, stop myself from, like, overdoing it with this when I, like, smooth everything out. This is also the only time you'll see her superhero outfit in this recording. I decided I'm going to save the superhero and villain outfits for a like separate height chart. So you can see when I open it back up, I actually just imported the portraits that I had already drawn of Avalon and Solaris. I had written down heights for everybody, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I just kind of picked random numbers. So Avalon is my shortest character and Solaris is my tallest character. And so I just wanted to like put them in together just to see like how they looked next to each other. And then immediately was like, they look ridiculous next to each other. So I ended up making her a little taller and him a little shorter just so that the difference between them wasn't quite so extreme. So the characters that I've done portraits for already, I've written descriptions for, so I figured I'd read those out as we go along. So Avalon's description. Avalon was born with the ability to color anything just by touching it. Not exactly the most useful power for fighting supervillains, but that didn't stop her from dreaming. As she got older, she learned that her powers weren't simply coloring solid objects, but actually changing the chemical composition of things. Anything, in fact, as long as she could touch it. So now she fights crime by making colorful projectiles out of literal thin air. So yeah, I was glad that the main description kind of covered her inner conflict, because her powers are so complicated to explain. It took the entire paragraph. Oh, I also, you'll see here I did a turnaround for her. I ended up not doing that for the rest of them. I am gonna go back and do that later, but I think it was probably smart of me to not continue to do them, because you'll see later I went back and tweaked her a little bit. So when I go back and do the turnarounds, I'm gonna have to adjust it to match the front. So next I drew Solaris. I kind of drew these in the order of like how set in stone their character designs were. So like these two, obviously I did the portraits, so I already had a pretty good idea of how I wanted them to look. You see that almost everyone else I ended up changing a bit from my original design. But so the description of Solaris. As the eldest son of the man behind the Neorise Tech Corporation, Solaris was raised to follow in his father's footsteps. Between normal schoolwork and learning how to run the company, he never had time to maintain friendships. Now made CEO of the company, he continues to diligently follow in his late father's wishes, but often finds himself feeling trapped by his obligations. Now, when I drew him here, it was actually, you know, it was pretty easy to draw him because I've literally just drawn a portrait of him. But when I was drawing the portrait, it was kind of tricky to like figure out exactly how I wanted to draw him, because people obviously, they see his long hair and they immediately think girl. But I also really wanted him to have like a pretty soft looking face, which, you know, kind of makes him look more feminine. So it was tricky finding the balance, because I didn't really want people to think he was a girl, but I also didn't want to compromise the vision I had for him in my head. But I think what I landed on works pretty good, hopefully. I mean, you can let me know, but it's probably not going to change at this point. I drew Jada next. I don't have a description for her yet, but she is one of Avalon's roommates, along with Koko. She's kind of the mom of the friend group. She's the most mature out of the three of them. She's also a plant mom. She started out as just like, she was supposed to be like a really minor character, because I felt like I needed a few more characters to like fill out the world a little bit. And then she kept getting more and more important to the plot, because I just really liked her. So what you see here for her though, you'll see I end up changing later on. I just wasn't like, something about her, like, she just felt a little bit off to me. So I ended up going back and tweaking a lot, especially with her face. Oh, and her height changes as well. By the way, if you're curious how I record these, I draw everything in Procreate, and Procreate has this like automatic time-lapse feature, and it just records like the main canvas screen. That's why you don't see any of the toolbars on the side. You don't see when I flip my canvas or my references, because unless I drop them directly in the document, because the reference sheet is a separate panel. It also doesn't show like when I zoom in and out and stuff. I think it works pretty well. Sometimes I do wish it would like zoom in on what I was doing, so you guys, because sometimes it's hard to keep track of when I start jumping around. But at the same time, I feel like if it was recording exactly what my screen was showing the entire time, it probably would end up being a little bit dizzying to watch. So next we have Leon, and here's Leon's description. As Solaris' younger brother, Leon didn't have nearly as much pressure on him growing up. A mechanical engineering genius from a young age, his father expected him to be the one in charge of creating new technologies for the company, while Solaris took care of all the paperwork and such. But while this was all with good intentions, it made Leon feel a bit overlooked. I actually just did a portrait of Leon last week, but I drew this first, and you'll see that that his character design actually changes quite a bit as well. I think part of the reason I struggled to figure out how I wanted him to look is because he is sort of like, you know, classic boy genius character, but I didn't want him to be, I wanted him to read as that, but also not look like every other Sinkin one. There's definitely a stereotype for like the kind of outfit that type of character wears. And so I really wanted to like, I wanted him to still give off that vibe while looking unique, you know? I thought the first outfit I drew was a bit too science-y for someone who's supposed to be more like into robotics and stuff. So I made it more casual, but I still kept the lab coat because I felt like he would wear one just because, you know? Like, just as a fashion statement, even if it's not necessarily necessary for the kind of work that he's doing. So, but I gave him a t-shirt instead of a button-up. I put the company logo on the t-shirt. I think later I go back and I tweak a few things. I changed the colors a little bit, and I made the lab coat sleeves go all the way down to the gloves, because not because like there was necessarily anything wrong with that as a character design choice. I just really hated it. I thought it looked really tacky. I also ended up swapping him and Jada around just because I wanted to see what the two brothers looked like next to each other. Leon actually dyes his hair, in case you were wondering. That's not, I don't know if I mentioned that anywhere, but that's canon, okay? He's actually the only one who dyes his hair. The blue on Avalon's hair is actually because of her powers. So next I drew Koko. I don't have a description written for Koko yet, but basically she is Avalon's sidekick in training. Actually, she and Avalon are technically related. They're cousins. I know they don't look anything alike, but, you know, Koko takes after the other side of her family. But the one thing they do have in common is they have, Koko has pretty much the same powers as Avalon. So yeah, so it made sense for Avalon to basically train Koko. But Koko's still not very good at using her powers. She's also, very reckless. She tends to rush into things without thinking. Here you can see I went back and started working on Jada again. Koko's very tall here. That's one of the things that changed. Actually, I think Jada and Leon's heights basically swapped, and then Koko got a lot shorter. So, for Koko's design, I actually hadn't worked on her in a long, long time. So, you'll see I do a lot of trial and error, particularly with the pants. What's funny is, like, when I drew a long time ago, I put her superhero logo on her shirt, because I thought that would have been, like, so funny for her to, like, if she, like, made and wore her own merch, even though her identity is supposed to be, like, a secret. And somehow that's, like, the only thing that carried over from her original outfit. I think in her original design, she had jeans and boots, and I switched here to cargo pants and tennis shoes, and then I switched the cargo pants out for sweatpants. And that design sits here for a while, but I did end up changing that as well. Here's where I went back and changed Leon's shirt a little bit, and then I went and changed a little bit more on Jada. I really liked those boots I had for her, but I felt like they didn't really fit with, like, the aesthetic of everyone else. I felt like she needed something that was a little more modern. The setting for the book is kind of like a modern futuristic city, and I thought that these boots would work good for her because they're kind of like a fancy gardening boot. I was trying to find a balance for Jada between looking like kind of classy, but also like she's ready to go dig in the garden at any moment. I'm moving myself over here now so that I don't interfere with the drawing, but here we have Tio. So Tio is Leon's best friend and also Avalon's, like, skateboarding buddy. I'll be honest, he needs a lot of work yet. I feel like I'm 3/4 of the way through the story and I haven't quite figured out what I want for his character. And so that meant that I ended up doing a lot of messing around with this character, just trying to figure out what I wanted for him. I think what I landed on for him I do like now, but boy, it took a while to get there. And it may change, because I do plan to go back and rewrite him a lot, so when I do that I may have a clearer vision for what he should look like. But for now, this is Tio. Here's where I went back and I started tweaking the proportions and the heights a little bit. I realize now I was wrong. I didn't actually swap Leon and Jada's heights. I just made them both taller, I think. And I ended up making Jada a bit thicker because she was supposed to be originally, and somehow that didn't quite translate over. And then I made Koko a lot shorter. And I think that where I landed on is good. Here you can see I went back and started changing Koko again. I started with these shorts over the leggings, which is kind of funny, but I just think look kind of cheesy. So I opted for a skirt instead. I think it's cute. I thought it would be a good change as well, because it kind of breaks it up a little bit, makes her a little bit more girly looking. And then I went back to Tio, and you can see things changed a lot. The hat went away for a bit, then it comes back. Then I opened the jacket, then I closed it again, and I made it oversized. Because it was supposed to be oversized originally, and then for some reason when I drew it, I drew it like pretty slim actually. And then I ended up, I tried a different color. It had him in that orange for a while, but I thought maybe maybe the teal would look better because it's like softer. But I do end up going back to the orange. You can see I import a ton of color palettes that I got off this one website because I just wanted to like try different things to see what could go with the orange. So I think I landed in a similar spot to what I had, but just like much softer colors because the orange and yellow I had were pretty bright. And I think that makes sense too, because like the whole reason I switched to teal was because I felt like I wanted him to have like a softer color palette. So I just ended up landing on an orange that was also soft. Next we have my little baby. Her name's Pip-R. She's a robot and she's like a literal baby. She's only like a few days old. Leon created her. I should have mentioned that about Leon. Leon actually creates all of Avalon's gear. He's like the Edna Mode of my story. This is a really funny comparison now that I think about it. But, so yeah, he created Pip-R for Avalon as like kind of a failsafe. Because, you know, like I said, Koko is kind of a walking disaster. So Pip-R is more like a backup in case like things really go wrong. But she's tiny and adorable. And I love her so much. I didn't actually change her design very much. The face is a little bit creepy at first. It took me a while to figure out how to do it. Because I needed her to feel like she fit in with everyone else, but she's also kind of she's a bit more chibi in proportions. I ended up making her a bit bigger as well, because she was just so small. I felt like you'd hardly even see her next to everyone else. So I think I ended up making her like 3 feet tall. She's one that, I will say, she started out like very different, like very robot, kind of cat-like rather than humanoid. And so, but this design was based on my most recent drawing of her. And the only thing that changed from that drawing, originally she had heart-shaped eyes, and I felt like it didn't read very well in this style, and maybe at the scale she was at. So I changed them to like normal eyes, but they still have the kind of wild two-tone coloring. I will say also, the one thing about her design, the little blue heart on her chest is supposed to be like, originally was supposed to be like a cutout of the shirt, and the heart is like part of her model. But I realized that is not obvious at all, and I haven't decided if I want to like try and make it more obvious, or if I just want to leave it as just like a shirt graphic as a nod to the original design where it was a cutout. I think probably if I had made it like low or something, it would look more like it was part of her. But I don't know. I'll have to decide that later. And so yeah, that's everyone. I hope you enjoyed this. I don't know how often I'll do commentary speed paints, but I definitely had a lot of fun doing this. If you guys really like it, maybe I'll do it more. But that's gonna be it for today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! As Solaris's younger but the main thing that they do have in common is they have very similar power. I should mute my phone.